It was a warm summer afternoon in a quiet English village. Two 10-year-old girls put on their matching Manchester United shirts to pose for a photo and head out to buy sweets from a nearby sports center. One of those jerseys was the one of the girls' older brothers. In just 2 hours, those girls, Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman, will vanish. Their smiling photograph will be everywhere, on television, on front pages of newspapers, in the hands of volunteers searching the fields and ditches around the village of Soham. And the person behind this all knows exactly what happened to them. He will stand in front of cameras, calmly describing himself as the last person to see them alive. This is Strawberry Ink, and today's episode is about the Soham murders, the disappearance and killing of Holly and Jessica, as well as the lies, failures, and manipulations that followed. Welcome to Strawberry Ink. Listener discretion is strongly advised for this episode. There will be a discussion of crimes. Severe ones, not any crime, gruesome ones. Sexual offending, and distressing forensic detail. Please take care of yourself while listening. Today's story takes us to Soham, a small town in Cambridgeshire, England in August 2002. What begins as an ordinary Sunday will become one of the most high-profile missing person searches in British history, and it will expose a predator who should never have been allowed in that area in the first place. It's Sunday, August 4th, 2002, just before midday, 11:45 a.m. 10-year-old Jessica Chapman leaves home on Brook Street in Soham to go to a barbecue at the home of her best friend. Both families were friends with one another, but after a long road trip, Jessica's parents chose to stay home and send her to the barbecue by herself. The parents would stay home unpacking. She met up with this best friend, 10-year-old Holly Wells, in Red House Gardens. She brought Holly a special gift, a necklace with the letter H, which she purchased on the family road trip to Menorca. At Holly's house, the girls play computer games and listen to music with another friend, Natalie Parr, before Natalie, along with her family, goes back home. By around 3:15 p.m., Holly and Jessica changed into matching replica Manchester United soccer shirts. One belonged to Holly and the other to her older brother Oliver. At 5:04 p.m., Holly's mother took a photo of the girls in those shirts. They're smiling, relaxed, completely unaware that this picture will become the image the entire country associates with their names. After dinner, they headed upstairs again, sending emails and browsing the internet between 5:11 and 5:32 p.m. Around 6:05 p.m., the girls leave the Wells home without telling anyone, planning to buy sweets from a vending machine at the Ross Pierce Sports Center. CCTV later records them arriving at the center at about 6:28 p.m., still in their Manchester United shirts. They had been wearing the shirts, black shorts, white socks, and black shoes. On their way back home, back to Jessica's home, or Holly's home. It is unclear where they were headed to. Holly and Jessica walk past 5 College Close, the home of 28-year-old school caretaker Ian Huntley. He works at the local secondary school, Soham Village College. His girlfriend, 25-year-old Maxine Carr, is a teaching assistant at the girls' primary school, someone they know and trust. Huntley tells them Maxine is inside. However, the truth is that she is not. She actually is visiting her mother in Grimsby. But those few words, Maxine's in here, are enough to get the girls to step into this house. After that, nothing normal ever happens again. What happened inside that house is still not fully known. Investigators later believed that parts of Huntley's various stories may contain fragments of truth, like that Holly had a mild nosebleed and that he had the bath filled with water to clean his dog. But everything is buried under layers of lies. The coroner, Nat Carey, at the Aidan Brooks Hospital in Cambridge, would soon after release a gruesome statement. He ruled that both girls died of asphyxiation, but could not identify a precise mechanism of death because their bodies were found in an advanced state of decomposition. There was no clear evidence of stabbing, poisoning, or compressive neck injuries. The pathologist cannot say for sure if there was sexual assault. The bodies at this point are too badly damaged. What is clear here is timing. Jessica's Nokia 6110 phone is switched off at about 6:46 p.m. That's almost certainly after both girls are already dead. The phone is turned off either at the Huntley's home or on the Soham Village College grounds. 8 p.m., Holly's mother, Nicola, goes to her daughter's room in order to call the girls and have the barbecue be over. She did not know where the girls were, so she checked the bedroom. They were not hiding anywhere, they were just gone. The mother had been calling them to come downstairs and got no response. There were no signs of Holly or Jessica. At first, Nicola and her husband Kevin searched the house and nearby streets, assuming the girls had lost track of time or were hiding somewhere. By 8:30 p.m., Holly's curfew has come and gone. Nicola calls Jessica's parents, Leslie and Sharon Chapman, informing them that they do not know where the two girls are. She asks if the girls were in their home. These parents checked, but they were not. Both families panicked and began frantic searches. At 9:55 p.m., they went to the police to report Holly and Jessica missing. The police responded quickly. Over 400 officers were assigned full-time to the search. House-to-house inquiries began across Soham, and hundreds of local residents volunteered to help. U.S. Air Force personnel from nearby bases even joined the effort. Police released the now infamous photograph of Holly and Jessica in their matching Manchester United shirts and issue detailed descriptions of both girls. Around 4'6", slim, white, Holly with blonde hair and Jessica tanned with shoulder-length brown hair, a brunette. Their families and teachers described them as sensible, wary of strangers, and well aware of stranger danger. With a suspected abduction, investigators questioned every registered sex offender in Cambridgeshire and neighboring Lincolnshire. They also look at over 260 registered sex offenders across the UK, including 15 considered high risk. Upon further review, all are eliminated from the investigation. Neither had mentioned running away. Jessica had been wanting to spend most of the day at Holly's home, greeting the family with a smile and lots of kindness. Holly as well smiled, and before leaving the home, she grabbed nothing to vanish for several days. All she grabbed was a pair of socks to put on before leaving. No snacks, no water bottles, no hygiene products. Therefore, this disappearance was unusual. Officers even explored whether the girls could have arranged to meet someone they'd spoken to online. But this theory was ruled out. The community holds a candlelight vigil on August 7th. CCTV of the girls at the sports center is released on August 8th. A televised reconstruction of their last known movements airs nationally on August 10th. And the parents appear on ITV's Tonight on August 12th, pleading for their daughter's safe return home. Tips flood in. Over 2,000 calls and messages are logged into the investigation system. People report seeing two girls in Beckham shirts walking through Soham around the time of the disappearance. Others mention a suspicious white van and a taxi driver, describing a man in a dark green saloon apparently struggling with two girls on the A142 toward Newmarket. None of these leads go anywhere. One person who does come forward is Ian Huntley. On August 5th, he tells police he spoke to Holly and Jessica on his doorstep the previous afternoon. He says they asked about Maxine's job application at their school and walked off toward the library. He describes them as happy as Larry. This is most likely a way to clear things up and not be a person of interest in the investigation. Stay tuned for part 2 coming right up. As the days pass, Huntley does something that, in hindsight, feels chilling. He steps into the spotlight in an act to clear things up and try to get away with the unthinkable. He gives interviews to Sky News and BBC Look East, positioning himself as helpful, concerned, and a member of the community, emphasizing that he was the last one to see the girls alive. He talks about the despair in Soham and insists he's holding onto a glimmer of hope that Holly and Jessica will be found safe. Maxine Carr talks to the press. In one interview, she supports Huntley's account that the girls came to the door while she was supposedly bathing. She describes Holly as really lovely, calls Jessica more of a tomboy, and even shows a thank you card Holly gave her on the last day of school. She speaks about the girls in past tense, saying, "She was just lovely, really lovely," then pleads for them to get on the phone and just come home. What viewers and many officers don't know yet at this point is that Maxine is not telling the truth. Phone and witness evidence will later show she was in Grimsby that night, the night the girls disappeared, and not at this home in Soham. Behind the scenes, Huntley is coming apart. He begins losing weight and shows signs of insomnia. He has been unable to sleep for a while. He participates in searches, asks officers how long DNA lasts, and tries to keep up with the progress of the investigation. One officer notices 3 vertical scratches on his left jaw, about 3 centimeters long. He blames this on his dog. He's prescribed antidepressants on August 13th. Police are suspicious. A single officer who searched Huntley's house back on August 5th noticed something odd. The house smelled strongly of cleaning products and some laundry was hanging outside, even though it had been raining. Huntley casually explains, "We had a flood." One of the officers leaves unconvinced. 12 days after Holly and Jessica disappeared on August 17th, the search finally shifted from hope to horror. At 12:30 p.m., a gamekeeper named Keith Pryor and two friends are near Raff Lakenheath in Suffolk, around 10 miles from Soham. Pryor has noticed a foul smell in the area days earlier, and on this day decides to investigate. Walking through an overgrown verge near an irrigation ditch about 5 feet deep, they find what they fear the most: two bodies lying side by side near a pheasant pen, close to the perimeter fence of the air base. One of the searchers shouts to his girlfriend to stay back and calls the police. The girls have been missing at this point for 13 days. These two bodies found are in an advanced state of decomposition. Some of their remains and clothing appear to have been burned. Investigators quickly conclude that these two bodies did not die at this dump site. They were only found there, and they were killed somewhere else, because how could you burn a body inside a soaking ditch? Forensic analysis of nettle growth and plant disturbance later suggests the bodies were placed there within about 24 hours after their death, almost 2 weeks earlier. That is according to Dr. Carey from the Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge. He is the Home Office pathologist in charge of conducting autopsies in the area. Hair belonging to Jessica was found on a nearby tree branch. At this point, investigators are certain that these are the bodies of Holly and Jessica, though formal DNA identification is needed and will take a few more days to complete. On August 21st, those tests confirmed what everybody already feared. Dr. Nat Carey declared that these two dead bodies were the ones of Holly and Jessica. They had been murdered, but the method is still unknown. 9 days later, a memorial service is held at the Ely Cathedral, which draws about 2,000 people to witness. Classmates, teachers, family liaison officers, and members of the community. The Reverend speaks about grief and the hope that people will treat each other better in the girl's memory. That service is for Jessica. The C.E. Fuller Funeral Home makes sure that those attending the funeral, either residents of Soham, part of that community, or loved ones of the girls. The following day, Reverend Tim Alban Jones conducts the next service for Holly at the St. Andrew's Parish in Soham. Both are buried at the Soham Cemetery. Even before the bodies are found, information is catching up with Ian Huntley and Maxine Carr. Residents in Grimsby recognize Huntley from the news and tell police he's been accused of rape in the past, and that he likes girls who are way younger than him. Other witnesses say Maxine was drinking in Grimsby on the night of August 4th, contradicting her televised claim that she'd been at the home in Soham. On August 16th, police carry out a full forensic search of 5 college clothes and the grounds of Soham Village College were Huntley works. Every room in the house appears to have been recently and meticulously cleaned with a strong lemon-scented product. But not everyone is gone. At the school, investigators find items of clothing that the girls were wearing, including the Manchester United shirts, charred and cut in a bin in a hangar. Fibers from these clothes match fibers from Huntley's clothes in his car and his home. His fingerprints are on the bin. Huntley's Ford Fiesta is also examined. It has been cleaned, but no traces are immediately noticed. However, upon further examination, there were indeed traces of brick dust, chalk, and concrete. They were hard to see, but they were there. Matching material from the road leading to the body's location are found around the wheel arches and pedals. A rear seat cover is missing, and the boot lining has been replaced with a piece of household carpet. By August 7th, police have gone public with their belief that the girls were abducted. After the clothing, finds, and forensic links, on August 16th, they move quickly. In the early hours of August 17th at dawn, Ian Huntley and Maxine Carr have been tracked down and located. They are being accused of suspicion of abduction and murder. Here is what happens next. Police obtain Huntley's father's address from records of the nearby school and send plainclothes officers there. The father was an emergency contact according to the school where Huntley worked at. At the same time, another team of officers goes to Maxine's workplace, the Holiday Inn Hotel in Histon, Cambridgeshire. They call her over, handcuff her, and take her to the Peterborough police station in Fort Wood. She cooperates and eventually admits she believes Ian killed the girls, and she agrees to help investigators. Maxine hands over keys to the Huntley family home, allowing officers to enter. They find Ian inside and arrest him, transporting him to the Huntingdon police station. He denies any involvement with the girl's death. Both he and Maxine spent 2 nights in custody at their stations, having access to a steel toilet, a steel sink, a steel bed with a memory foam mattress on it, and a shower. After those 2 nights, as investigators gathered evidence together, both were brought to the Peterborough Magistrates Court on August 19th, where Judge Nicholas Coleman, a district judge, along with 2 lay magistrates from the public, unanimously vote to have the couple await trial behind bars. They do not get bond or pretrial release. By the following day, August 20th, there's enough forensic evidence for formal charges. Huntley is charged with 2 counts of murder, and he is sent under Section 48 of the Mental Health Act to Rampton Secure Hospital. He is taken to this hospital from court for a psychiatric evaluation, and he is chained throughout the whole process. Maxine Carr is charged with an obstruction offense. She will later face more legal trouble. During questioning, Huntley initially refused to answer, drools, and appears confused, trying to give the impression he's mentally unstable. This behavior leads to this detailed psychiatric assessment at the hospital. Carr takes a different approach. She admits she lied to police and the media about her whereabouts on August 4th. She says Ian called her before she returned from Grimsby and told her that Holly and Jessica had come into their house so Holly could deal with a nosebleed, and that he feared he'd be falsely accused due to a prior rape allegation. She claimed she agreed to help protect him because she believed he was innocent and terrified of being fitted up by police. As his girlfriend, she loved him and was willing to do anything to defend him. At this point, she is charged with 2 additional offenses of assisting an offender. At Rampton, consultant forensic psychiatrist Christopher Clark assesses Huntley. He concludes that Huntley is a psychopathic but does not suffer from any major mental illness or psychosis and is mentally fit to proceed with his criminal case. In Clark's words, Huntley attempted to appear insane, but there was no doubt that at the time of the murders he was physically and mentally sound and aware of his actions. In October 2002, Huntley is formally declared fit for trial. He's moved to a segregation unit at Woodhill Prison in Buckinghamshire. In June 2003, he attempts suicide by taking 29 antidepressant pills that he has been hoarding in his cell. Despite fears he might die, he recovers and is later transferred to the Belmarsh prison in London upon being treated at the Woodhills Medical Unit. Legal teams began to form. Huntley's defense is led by barrister Stephen Coward, while Maxine Carr is represented by Michael Hubbard. Both are funded through legal aid. Multiple attempts to secure their release before trial are rejected. At a preliminary Old Bailey hearing in London on June 16, 2003, Huntley pleads not guilty to the murder charges, but guilty to the obstruction offense. Maxine Carr pleads not guilty to all charges. The trial is scheduled for November 2003 at the same courthouse before the assigned justice arraigning them, Alan Moses. The world's media will be watching. On November 5th, 2003, the trial is official and opens. Prosecutor Richard Lafemme lays out the Crown's case that Holly and Jessica passed by 5 college close by chance at a time when Carr was away, that Huntley deliberately lured them inside using Maxine's name, and that he murdered them shortly after 6:37 p.m., then switched off Jessica's phone around 6:46 p.m., either at his house or at Soham Village College, where he worked. Lafemme explains that cell site data, eyewitness accounts, and forensic evidence tie the sequence together. He describes how the girls' bodies were found near Rath Lake and Heath, at a location Huntley knew from plane spotting, and that he likely believed was remote enough to avoid discovery. On motive, Lafemme acknowledges the pathologist cannot say for sure whether the girls were sexually assaulted, but he argues the likely motive is sexual. Both girls are 10. They're in his home. Within hours, they're dead, burnt, and hidden. He methodically describes fiber matches between the girls cut and burned Manchester United shirts, as well as fibers from Huntley's clothes, car, and carpets. He highlights Huntley's cleaning, frenzy, and the disposal of clothing in a school bin he had access to. On Maxine Carr, LaFemme emphasizes that phone and witness evidence put her in Grimsby on the night of August 4th, exposing her lies in interviews and in statements to police. He stresses that to convict her of assisting an offender, the jury must believe she knew Huntley had murdered the girls. For perverting the course of justice, her motive is irrelevant. What matters is that she lied to obstruct the investigation. Forensic scientist Helen Davy testifies about biological traces found on the girls' clothing, footwear, and dishcloth recovered from the hangar at Soham Village College. She explains there are minute traces of blood and saliva, but no semen detected, something that could be due to the extreme heat damage and charring of the items. Crime scene experts also testify that, despite Huntley's efforts to scrub his house, small bloodstains remain in the hallway and near the entrance to the master bedroom, consistent with an attempt to clean rather than an innocent explanation. On December 1st, Ian Huntley takes a stand. He admits that both girls died inside his home, but claims their deaths were accidental. According to his story, Holly had a nosebleed, and he brought both girls into the bathroom to help. The bath, he says, was already filled because he'd been washing his dog. He claims he slipped and accidentally pushed Holly into the bath, causing her to drown, while he froze in panic. Jessica, he says, saw this and began to scream, shouting, "You pushed her." He says he then tried to quiet her and accidentally suffocated her, focusing on stopping her screams instead of saving Holly. Huntley tells the court that when he finally came out of his panic, it was too late to save either of them. He claims his decision not to call emergency services was driven by fear that no one would believe it was an accident, especially given his past. He admits he concealed evidence and dumped the bodies, but insists he never intended to kill the girls. He cries on the stand, denies faking mental illness after his arrest, and attributes to his early apparent confusion and drooling to trauma and shock. On December 3rd, Maxine Carr testifies on her own defense. She tells the jury about her relationship with Huntley and their plans for a future together, including getting married and having kids. She describes returning to Soham on August 6th and finding that the bedding had been washed and parts of the house had been cleaned, including a new crack India enamel of the bathtub she says was not there before she left for Grimsby. Carr explains that she is obsessive about tidiness and helped clean because that was her habit, not because she knew a crime had been committed. She insists she believed Huntley's version that the girls had come in briefly and he was worried about being falsely accused because of the old rape allegation. She says she lied to police and the media and to anyone who asks to protect him, his job, and their future. She claims she only referred to Holly and Jessica in the past tense because she had taught them in the past. She tells the jury that if she had known, or even believed for a minute, that Huntley had murdered the girls, she would have been horrified and would never have provided him an alibi. Her barrister, Michael Hubbard, urges the jury not to judge her morals, but to think about her state of mind before the arrest, whether she genuinely believed Huntley was innocent when she told those lies. On December 10th, counsel for both sides delivered their closing arguments. Richard LaFamme brands Huntley and Carr accomplished liars, arguing that both girls had to die to satisfy Huntley's selfish interests. He calls their 12 days of press appearances and false alibis a calculated campaign of deception. He suggests the events in the house were sexually motivated and that when things went wrong, Huntley decided both girls had to be killed. He argues that Carr protected him because she wanted marriage, a baby, and a new life. She was willing to lie at all costs to preserve that. Stephen Coward, for the defense, admits Huntley is physically responsible for the deaths, but insists the Crown has not proved intent to kill or cause serious harm, and that there is no definitive proof of a sexual motive. He asked the jury to consider manslaughter, not murder. The jury retires on December 12th. They deliberate for approximately 4 days. On December 17th, 2003, they return a majority verdict. Ian Huntley is found guilty of the murder charges. He shows no visible emotion as the verdict is read. The mothers of Holly and Jessica break down into tears in the courtroom. Maxine Carr pleads guilty to the obstruction offense, but maintains her innocence on the other two charges for assisting an offender. The jury accepts she did not know the girls were dead when she lied. She is found not guilty on the assistant charges, but will not walk free anytime soon, as she immediately received a sentence of 3.5 years in prison for the obstruction. During sentencing, Justice Alan Moses delivers a devastating statement, telling Ian Huntley, "Your tears have never been for them, only for yourself. In your attempts to escape responsibility, in your lies and manipulation, you have increased the suffering of two families. There are few worse crimes than your murder on these two young girls." Huntley is sentenced to life in prison, with the minimum tariff to be set later by the Lord Chief Justice. On September 29, 2005, that minimum term was set at 40 years, meaning he will not be eligible for parole until 2042, when he will be 68 years old. The judge notes that the order offers little or no hope of eventual release. Huntley avoids a whole life tariff because the relevant law came into effect 1 day after his conviction. Outside of court, Jessica's father, Leslie Chapman, calls Huntley a time bomb waiting to go off, saying Holly and Jessica were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. He adds he hopes the next time he sees Huntley, it will be in a coffin. In prison, Huntley continues to be a target. In September 2005, at the HMP Wakefield, fellow inmate Mark Hobson scolds him and spills boiling water at him, causing severe burns, enough that Huntley cannot attend the hearing to set his minimum term. Huntley later complains that the authorities failed in their duty to care for him and applies for compensation, reportedly receiving legal aid to pursue the claim. He is moved to the Frankland prison in 2008. In March 2010, another inmate, Damien Fawkes, slashes Huntley's throat, leaving him with non-life-threatening injuries that require hospital treatment. Again, Huntley seeks compensation, this time reportedly for £20,000. Both inmates who have attacked him are placed into solitary confinement. Huntley, feeling humiliated, bullied, and hated in prison as well as disrespected by strict guards, makes more suicide attempts. In September 2006, he overdoses on antidepressants again. When his cell is searched afterward, guards find a cassette tape, a recorded, posthumous confession he believed would be revealed after his death. On it, he claims he told Maxine Carr he had murdered both girls before their arrest, and that she told him to pull himself together, encouraging him to burn the bodies to destroy evidence because she did not want to lose her teaching job, and he would hate if that happened to her. In April 2007, Huntley admitted to a 1997 sexual assault on an 11-year-old girl he had dragged into an orchard. He acknowledges having sexual interest in girls younger than him, although he still insisted Holly and Jessica's murders were not sexually motivated. This girl is tracked down and questioned. She claims that the confession gives her some relief, but she claims she still feels angry after all that time that Huntley got away with the sexual assault and continued to be free until he killed those two girls. Huntley later states he deserves to die in prison and will not apply for parole or appeal. He is currently serving his sentence at the HMP Frankland, a high-security prison in County Durham. Maxine Carr was released on probation from the Foston Hole prison on May 14, 2004, after serving 21 months, including time on remand. Because of threats and public anger, she is given a new identity and a secret address, one of only a small number of former prisoners in the UK granted lifelong anonymity. The costs of protecting her have been reported in the press as running into millions of pounds. At least a dozen of women have been wrongfully identified as her and harassed or attacked because of rumors about her identity circulating in tabloids. Carr initially considers publishing an autobiography through Tyneside-based company, but the deal collapses after public backlash. She waives her right to appeal her conviction as part of her plea arrangements. In the months and years after trial, Holly and Jessica's families tried to grieve away from the cameras. The inquest confirms both girls were almost certainly killed within 24 hours of their disappearance and moved soon after. They are buried side by side in that Soham cemetery on Fordham Road. After their private funerals, an orange-petaled rose named in their memory is unveiled at the 2003 Chelsea Flower Show, inspired by a poem Holly's father read at the service at the Ely Cathedral, a memorial service titled Soham's Rose. On April 3rd, 2004, 5 College Close, the house where Holly and Jessica died, was demolished. All rubble was removed to undisclosed locations. Today, the address is just a patch of grass, an attempt to erase a physical reminder of the crimes that took place there. The Soham murders did not devastate a town. Not just that, they raised urgent questions about how someone like Ian Huntley was ever able to work in a school when subsequent investigations revealed prior allegations of sexual assault and inappropriate behavior with girls around that age group. Red flags that somehow never followed him properly through background checks. For Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman, none of that scrutiny came in time. On a warm August evening, the 2 girls left a family barbecue to buy sweets. They trusted a familiar grown-up, walked through his front door, and never came home. If you or someone you know has been affected by themes in this episode, particularly the violence that these girls suffered, please consider reaching out to local mental health or victim support services. Look them up online. Support lines vary by country, so check resources available where you live. Thank you for listening to Strawberry Ink. If you like more episodes like this, you can follow or review the show, whether you get your podcasts from Spotify or not. Even on other platforms such as iHeartRadio or Amazon, you are able to follow the show and rate it. And as always, stay safe, stay curious, and look out for each other. Have a good rest of your day, and may the girls rest in peace.